Hi, everyone, and welcome to the FemForce podcast. My name is Rachel, and I am your host. And today I am so excited that I am being joined by Erin, who's a strategic advisor, a leadership coach, and an author of Effortless Success. So she knows all about ethical leadership, sustainability, empowering entrepreneurs to help achieve your growth. And I think this is such an important topic that is really pertinent to today, especially with everyone, jumping into side hustles and doing all of this kind of different things from their 9 to 5s and branching out. So, Erin, thank you so much for being here. I'm super excited to have you.
Thank you for inviting me to be part of Farm Force
So,
because I've
tell,
never considered myself to be one, but
yeah,
since I'm here,
you are
it's just
definitely one.
to make a step in the right direction. So here I am. Thank you for inviting me.
I appreciate it. So tell the listeners a little bit about yourself and how you got to the place that you're at now. And then we're going to dive into, what sustainability and leadership is and ethical leadership and all of that.
Oh my God, that's the question that I'm always dreading because I'm thinking how far back you would like me to go through. So many years of practice, so many years of life experience. I don't really know where to start, but let's give it a go.
All
I
right.
guess like most people, I stepped away from the corporate environment for a very simple reason. It didn't quite resonate with me because with time you start realizing what's more important in your life. And everything that I learned in the corporate, technical skills, incredible. Certain things about leadership, fantastic. So really lots of good, positive experience. But at the same time, I learned and realized for myself that in business, well, there are a few things. The first one, any business is as good as the leadership team.
Yeah.
And sometimes leadership team doesn't really lead the business in the right direction. So that was the first learning. The second one, leadership is about people. It's not about sales. Yes, it is about brands, and brands are your biggest asset. This is something that I learned and I believed in. But now I don't believe that brand actually is the biggest asset. For me, the biggest one are human beings because this is what drives business forward. When they're aligned together, when they're motivated, when they're ready to deliver, this is what brings, the whole thing in motion. Few others, such as, but that's more on a technical perspective. I'm a strategist, as you mentioned, and I do believe in strategy. So for me, right now, watching many businesses, the way they struggle, the way they go through hamster wheels and through hustle, it's like, why do you do it to yourself? So, and most businesses actually step away from strategy into tactics, and it didn't resonate with me either. So altogether, I believe it was the time to let it go and to move into a different direction.
Yeah.
So, as you mentioned in the introduction, I thought that coaching. Actually, I had a revelation. I woke up one morning. I was like, "What am I gonna do in my life?" And I had this download. Something like happens, and you have a thought coming from nowhere. You're gonna be a coach. I'm like, yeah, it's fantastic. It's exactly what I wanted to do all my life. I was so much passionate about psychology and understanding people, and I use so much psychology in my business and private life, embrace different schools, different methodologies. I'm like, yeah, it's exactly what I want to do. So I embarked on a very long and deep learning of psychology that eventually brought me away from coaching into pure psychology. So now I'm taking my PhD in psychology. I don't do coaching, I do psychology, executive psychology. So that's the latest news. You're the first one to know about it in the podcast universe. And I'm uber excited about it because, when something you wanted for so long, all your life, and every time, if you ask me during the interview process, sometimes people ask, who would you be if you weren't? I was like, yeah, I would have been psychologist, clinical psychologist. And even at some point, I decided to take a degree in psychology, but it was so expensive and I didn't have time to do it. So, like, yeah, no, I'm a bit too late. And I didn't realize that it doesn't really matter how old you are. You
No,
know,
not at
when you start
all. Yeah.
afresh, you feel like this energy is coming back and the life is just starting. So it's absolutely, it's incredible. It's an incredible feeling. At my age, you know, mid life level, you suddenly move where you always dreamed to be.
I love that though,
So
but so many women do things later in life. I mean, things don't just happen at, right out of college or 22 or 25 or right after grad school. Like you can go back to school later. You can have a complete career change later. You can have a child later. You can do all of the things later. And I think that's just such a good message that like time isn't always a constraint for some things.
yeah, because time will still pass, it will still go by, but you can either meet it in a new capacity or being afraid that eventually you will get older, time gonna just pass by and you're still gonna be in the same place.
Yeah.
So, time is not a measure. It still will be going, but what capacity, what quality you're gonna meet yourself few years from now, that's what matters. And again, you won't believe it's not just about going and learning something that you dreamt of, but it's also about starting afresh. And oh my God, people can start afresh at any moment. I learned about Lady, I think she foundational leader of one publishing house. It's in the UK. I forgot the name of the publishing house, but I believe that she started it like she was in her mid 60s or something.
Good for her.
So that was incredible. So here you go.
I
Yeah.
love it. Has any of your past experience from when you were coaching and, working with all these diverse, different companies and things like that, has that helped you kind of into this new career? Do you feel like all of that's going to have a really good foundation for you in the psychology portion of everything?
What do you mean how?
It's going to give you, for an example, are your experiences going to be able to help you within the
Oh yeah,
psychology world and those kind of things?
absolutely, definitely. Because when I started doing coaching, or well, I started training myself in coaching, my focus always was on
Yeah.
therapy and psychology, right? Because this is where I was gravitating just naturally. And I was time to realize that it's actually not quite coaching, it's something else. So yeah, I guess I just wasn't getting in coaching what my heart desired.
I
And
love it.
this is exactly what psychology
No,
gives
and
me.
that's amazing. And you do ethical leadership. So tell the audience a little bit about what is ethical leadership. Because there's so many different kinds of leadership.
Oh yeah, in all fairness, I really don't like putting any labels or anything. Because yeah, you have so many types of leadership, it
Yeah.
just becomes a little bit confusing. And everybody comes with something else. They put another cherry on the cake and give it yet another name. In reality, for me, ethical, well, any type of leadership, the one that actually contributes to the business, put it this way. It is about following the rules of ethics, but also about following the rules of humanism,
Yeah.
which actually part of human dignity is part of ethics, right? It's about following your values. It's about appreciating and recognizing humans and their contribution. It's about not doing bad things to either your partners or society. It's not about cheating. It's not about trying to find a way. It's not about pushing sales for sales sake. It just, you do all exactly the same thing as a leader, but you come from kind of a cleaner, more positive place, I believe. It's more about doing no harm.
I mean,
If you
that's
can
a
call it
huge thing.
ethical,
Yeah.
let's label it. But again, it's just doing no harm to anybody.
So how do you feel that
And it,
people find this as a leadership style? Do you feel like they develop it over time or it's something that you innately start with and kind of move towards?
Sorry, would you please repeat your question?
Yes, how do you find that people can find this type of leadership style? How are they able to, do they innately just start having this type of leadership style? Do they have to kind of figure it out as they go along? Do situations arise where that's where they then decide like this, I
All
should
right.
be doing this type of style?
That's actually a very good question because I guess it's easier said than done. And this is why I'm taking the role of psychologist.
Mhm.
Because I'm persuaded that inside, in us, we are strong, powerful, good human beings. This is how we were born. But what happens with time? We're just acquiring layers and layers and layers. I call it like lava, something that goes off volcano and covers the soil, covers vegetation. And then we believe from this perspective that this is how we really are. And this is why I don't really like the word authentic, because authentic applies to who we are at the moment, whether they are good or bad, but it's not who we really are within, from our inner knowing.
Yeah.
It's slightly different layer that is not visible to everybody, but it exists because this is how we were born to be. So for me, when you get rid of all this, thing that is killing sunlight, killing vegetation, something that stops you from growing your best bright green sprouts, this is where, from this place, when you start leading from this place, your no harm comes naturally. Because you are not born to be a bad person. You're not born to be a cheater. You're not born to mistreat people. You are born in all your force, in all your power to be a good human being.
Yeah.
So why not just go back to that and lead from this place? And this is where effortlessness comes because you don't learn trainings. You don't have a list of things that you have to follow to become ethical person
Yeah.
because you're either ethical or you are not, right? But this ethical, it's within. Uncover it. And the whole thing becomes so much easier. And on the plus side, let alone is going to help your business. It's going to have a ripple effect on your relationship, in your private life, in many other interactions that you have with people.
Yeah.
So yeah,
And I mean,
that's a recipe.
you wrote a whole book on this. So you wrote a book all about the effortless of being ethical and doing this within business. Can you talk a little bit about the book and like some insights from that?
Yeah, the book actually is slightly different direction because the book I wrote, it's when I was living the corporate environment and it was my farewell. So, sorry, the way how it was going, the story was unfolding. When I was leaving the corporate, I was having a lot of conversation with different businesses, and I noticed that what I'm talking about, AI, um, a strategy and brands,
Yeah.
they kind of they heard about it, but they don't really have an understanding of what I'm talking about. And another thing that I noticed when you talk to those businesses, you do the analysis, you do marketplace analysis, you realize that pretty much they all make similar mistakes and they run businesses in similar ways. So, like, okay, so what is the common denominator? And the common denominator came back to marketing and brand strategy because brand strategy is very similar to business strategy. So the rules, the steps you take is exactly the same. And I thought, okay, so it may be that I have something to share. I wasn't sure first in the first place, like, yeah, who am I? Am I really that good? And then I looked at different resources, and my favorite, I keep on saying, Harvard Business Review. And I found a few articles from professors, like big, big, big names,
Mhm.
usually from the previous century, because this is where you were learning foundations.
Yeah.
And they were all saying the same thing. As I was thinking, like, so probably I'm not that wrong. And I decided to pack all 20 years of my business experience in one book and just share it with those people who find it useful. So, all possible types of strategies, how to approach it, all the examples, coaching questions, bad stories, good stories, everything in one place. So it became like a Bible. Um, that like a reference book more than anything else
I know, but I
of
love
everything
that.
that I learned.
All of your work like in one place. And I mean, and you've got so much experience to share. What are three big highlights that you took that you hope that people take away from the book? That you're like, if you're going to read this, these are the things that you need to really take from this.
There are a few themes that go through it. The most important one is strategy. It's it's a foundation of any business. You can't build a business without a strategy. Forget about it. You will go for a few years. You're gonna be struggling. You're gonna be changing directions. But then either you fail or you'll continue struggling till you fail. Because all the way through, you're wasting your resources that are not focused on delivering the end result. So it's just absolutely crazy what companies do nowadays.
Yeah.
Just so easy to learn strategy, not to be afraid of it. So it's one thing. Another thing that is important, consumers, because they can be customer, they can be clients, and just coming from a FMCG background, consumers, they are human beings. They're not numbers. You can't bribe them with loyalty. You can't persuade them. You can't expect that they're going to stay with you because of your discounts.
Yeah.
They don't give a damn rat ass about how good your product is,
Yep.
because the only person who thinks that your product is good is you, right? So why don't you see people behind numbers, behind consumers? So that would be thing number two. And the third one, now going back, there were a few very good ones in terms of learning and insights and brands. Obviously, learn that the brand isn't the same thing as a brand name. It's different. It's strategic. This is what's going to bring you money. Brand name won't bring you money. So yeah, it's full of different things, which I would say probably most people would perceive unconventional
Yeah.
in in the current environment. And it doesn't mean that they're groundbreaking. Actually, they all go back to the foundations. But unfortunately, we moved so much far away from foundation that anything that challenges the silliness of best practices and quick fixes and tactics becomes unconventional. But yeah, so because I kind of enjoy being unconventional here and there, so why not challenge?
I love that. So when it comes to a brand, I mean, like you said, it's not just the name, it's so much more than that in a brand. How do people brand themselves then? Like if it's not just a product, but if you're trying to do it for yourself or to become your own brand, how do you do
Oh
that?
dear. There's no, well, it's a long process because
Yeah.
I've done it with few of my friends who solo entrepreneurs and they wanted to brand themselves. Well, the process is exactly the same as building a business brand, as a company brand. But you need to do a bit of self-reflection. You need to dig a little bit deeper to figure out who you are, what you stand for, what you believe in, what you want to bring into this world, what's so different about you. So it's all exactly the same process that I apply to people. Apply to people doesn't sound good, but okay, you got the message.
Yeah.
That I would apply it to business brands. It's about understanding, guess what you stand for? What's your meaning? And from this meaning gonna come your messaging. Because very often, what I noticed, a few things I noticed about personal brand that I find quite refreshing. So the first one, usually, people want to have messages without having a brand.
Okay.
So what do I talk about? I don't know, because what you talk about is a reflection of your brand. If you don't have a brand, you won't know what you talk about. Or what are my values? I don't know, because values depend on
Yeah.
what your brand is. And all the things, they're all kind of together, and people are confusing because it looks like they're looking for shortcuts. Let's create a visual palette. Let's do a website. Let's now, unfortunately, website and visual palette is a representation of your brand.
Yeah.
So there are things that are facing internally and there are things that are facing externally, And you can't have any externally facing communication, whatever it is, shape, images, colors, words, messages, if you don't know what's inside.
Yeah.
That's how you, I mean, yeah, it's easy. I don't know. It's like everything is so easy in my head.
Yeah,
And then I
easier
talk
said
to
than done, of
my
course.
friends, it's like, okay, walk me through this one. I don't get it. Please repeat it. Like, yeah, you just do it this way. She's like, no, give me an example.
I,
Yeah. So
it's easier
it's
said than done. It's always easier said than done. So that it completely makes sense. And so talk a little bit about how leaders, when they're trying to just, scale their business and do it in an ethical way, some of the mistakes that, when they're trying to scale their business, how to avoid some of the common mistakes that happen.
I'm I'm afraid you got frozen for a
Oh, no, can
second.
you hear me?
Yes, now it's all
Okay,
good.
no worries. Start over, we'll cut that out. So, can you tell the listeners a little bit about mistakes that leaders make when they're trying to scale their businesses and like the best way to try to avoid making those mistakes are?
The first and the easiest one, be strategic.
Okay.
There, there are few because most of them, I'm talking quite a lot about misunderstanding profit and profitability.
Okay.
That they're different things. It's about chasing quick wins. Profit is something that's gonna bring back to you right now, but it's not an indication of how successful your business is going to be long term.
Mhm.
Right? You need to think strategically. Wherever you want to go, that's the destination that you want to reach. And whatever activity you do, whatever step you do, whatever product you create, it's like in my book, I give an example that resonates with people. It's like Emerald City and the Yellow Brick Road,
Hmm.
right? So you build a strategy is this road that you build to get to the city, right? What businesses do nowadays, they really try everything. They hear something, you have a best practice, you have a fantastic advice. I love this one. 3 easy steps. No, there are no easy steps in life, and there are no easy steps in business. Forget about it. It doesn't work that way. But because I heard these 3 easy steps, I'm going to try it here and now. I will calculate return on investment because that is very, very important that you're going to get your ROI. And then what? And you don't get what you were after. So what you do, you hear another 3 fantastic steps that tomorrow you switch everything. You forget about everything you've done. You change your direction. You try and do something else because somebody told you so. Because that is the last best practice, right? And that you start zigzagging back and forth. Every time you get a bit of return on investment if you're lucky, but in reality, what happens, you're wasting resources. And I'm not talking about budgets as such, you're wasting time because you are not one step closer to where you want to be, but the time is wasted. How you get burnout? Because you constantly do something in a hamster wheel without any result.
Yeah.
There's no satisfaction, there's nothing. But everybody is working non-stop because we need to run to the left and then we need to run to the right. That's the biggest issue that I face when I see how business usually being run.
That's
Another thing that I noticed is sales. That absolutely crazy. What's the right word? Slipped it. Paranoia.
okay.
That's the right one about sales. But what people again they don't realize two interesting things. So the first thing that they get money not from selling products, but from people buying products. If you try to push sales versus you try make people be willing to pay for your product, that's where the difference is. So the focus and the whole thing is on the wrong setup. And another thing is that sales is not the key department in a business. The key department actually is marketing because it's supposed to create something that people are supposed to pay for and communicate it in a way that people willing to resonate with this communication, right? So sales is just supportive function for marketing, because they just sell what marketing creates.
Very true.
So, and behind sales and behind this product or communication, you have many, many, many departments. So business is holistic. If you want it to function properly, well, unfortunately, you have to defocus from sales. And as a leader, to consider the whole business as like your body,
Yeah.
where every organ has to be functioning so you can continue carry on living without being in pain or struggle. So I don't know, those are kind of few things that I believe so common that it's just impossible to miss.
Well, 1,000%. And for the listeners who are, just starting out in their leadership journeys or their entrepreneurship journeys, do you have any advice for them on like how to maintain motivation and like stay focused during these hard times, the beginning stages?
You need to know why you're doing it. I don't like start with why again because it's simply overused and became like a hype thing. But in reality, why questions came from previous century, not from Simon Sinek. So, and it's about understanding the deep rooted reasons behind anything, by the way. Another big mistakes businesses do when they try to fix something on the surface instead of going deep and understanding what actually is not working. We're trying to patch everything. We put a patch for hangover, we put a patch for ulcer, we put a patch for so many different big things in business in the hope that it's going to sort the issue out. No, ulcer will still gonna grow, probably even under a band-aid. So forget about it. It's not going to work. So yeah, understand the reason why you're doing it. That would be the first one for motivation, because motivation comes when you want it. If you don't want it within yourself, inside yourself, nope. Point number two, create a strategy, because it's just gonna make it easier for you.
Yeah.
Yes, it's gonna take time in the beginning, but longer term, you will not be in a situation where you have to face all these horrible things such as stress and mental upsets and burnouts, all that. You will prevent it from the very beginning, including the risks that your business may face.
Interesting.
And point number three, and that's I also adore it. Look, there's a great thing. Just think about it for a second. I do like challenging, but there are three things that we believe we are God gifted to do. We're just naturally born. So the first one, we're naturally born parents, gifted parents.
Okay.
Just because we can conceive, it
Mhm.
somehow gives us right to believe that we know how to raise children. The same comes with pets. Oh my God, I'm watching videos about dogs and like, oh, dogs misbehave. Well, yeah, because they're supposed to be properly educated to behave correctly, right? And the third one, somehow we are God gifted to know how to run businesses. It's just in our blood.
Yeah.
So let's give it a go. But in reality, it comes with knowledge.
Yeah.
If you want not to lose your motivation, if you want to be more successful and drift through it nicely, learn. But learn from those who are reputable to learn from. You have Harvard Business Review, you have Khan Academy, you have London Business School, you have INSEAD. I'm not saying you have to go to London Business School,
Yeah.
but they all have sites and resources that are trustworthy. Don't learn from everybody. Pardon all guys for saying a lot of things. No, learn from those people that know what they're talking about.
We have to have the
And then,
self-motivation, like the self-motivation
hmm,
to actually get started, the self-motivation to learn, to do better, to grow. And like that has
yeah,
to be a huge part of it. If you're not self-motivated, what do you think you're going to do running a business?
okay. So you need to find your thing.
Mhm.
the one that ignites you. And not because somebody tells you that this is what's going to bring money. It won't. Very simple, because if it's not what you want, you will still try to find a way not to do it full speed, full power, full intention. Yeah. And this is where a brand comes from. I was talking to a friend of mine and we just did her messaging.
Yeah.
And she said, "Oh my God, I have tears in my eyes because I'm home."
Oh, I love that.
And that was magical, because when you know your messages, those that just live within you and you want to share them, this is what's going to ignite your power motivation. And not because somebody told you something. That's a big difference.
That's amazing though, but it's so poignant. Like you have to have, you need to know, and you have to figure that out along the way. And I think that's such a beautiful message though to give to people. Like it's possible. You just you have to know your why.
Uncover.
Yeah, you've got to
Yeah.
figure it out first.
Yeah.
So,
Absolutely.
Erin, tell everyone where they can find you, ethical leadership, your strategies. Plug yourself a little bit. Where can we find you online? Where can we find the resources? Where can people utilize you at?
Yeah, it can't be any easier because all information is going to be in the show notes.
Okay, perfect. So we will
That's about it.
we will link everything down there for everybody to make sure that everyone has it. So my final question that I ask all of my guests are, if you could give one piece of advice to your 16-year-old self, what would that be?
Oh, yeah, I love this question. I gonna tell you the truth. I won't give any advice to my 16 years old because we tend to do what we want to do and what we think is right. So if I come to you, it doesn't really matter what age you are. I say, do it this way. You're like, yeah, okay, whatever. Right. So if I came back to my 16-year-old, I said, you know what? I'm from the future. I know how it's supposed to be. Do it this way. Like,
No.
right. No.
Like most six, true,
So
like
there's no
most
point.
16-year-olds. Most 16-year-olds are
For
very stubborn.
anybody,
Yep.
anybody, you just talk to people. And when people say never give advice, because it's not welcome. People not going to follow, and you're going to feel disappointed, and another person going to get pissed off because somebody told them what to do while they know better because they're rulers of their own life, right?
Yeah.
So, from this perspective, that's my answer to your question.
I love that though. And that's such a poignant answer. I think
Being
that's
perfectly unconventional.
no, yeah, but hey, it works, right? But it also like that makes so much sense. And I love that. Like it's a different answer than I've gotten, and I think that's phenomenal. And that's really what matters.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming on the podcast, Erin. I really appreciate it. I know the listeners are going to get something out of this and just learn so much from it. So we can't wait for everybody to follow Erin. You're going to find everything in the show notes, and we're excited to talk to you next week. Thank you, Erin. Of
Thank you so much for inviting me, for giving me opportunity to talk to your listeners.
course.
That's priceless.
We will talk soon, everyone. Bye bye.